everyone, my name is Amber. Welcome and welcome back to my channel, Amber Reads Romance. Today I'm really excited. I'm going to be doing a Mafia recommendation video. I primarily read Mafia and dark romance, so it's pretty shocking that I haven't done one yet. So I really wanted to do one that was kind of an intro into Mafia. And I thought I would start with a specific author because this author got me into this Mafia genre, and I think she's a good author to kind of dip your toe in. If you don't know where to start with Mafia, I think she's a good place to kind of see if it's something you'd be interested in. I honestly read more like escalated or darker or other kind of Mafia now, but I think it's a good place to kind of start. This is kind of like an intro to Mafia, but also a dive into an author. So we're going to go over my introduction to Mafia and go over two series by Cora Reilly. I think I have like one standalone and then one that's kind of like part of the series, but you don't have to read it. So I'm going to go into her two series and then kind of just that standalone. So let's go ahead and dive right into this kind of deep dive intro to Mafia for Cora Reilly. Okay, so to start out, you really want to start with the Born in Blood series. I specifically really wanted to read a book in the Camorra Chronicles, but I saw YouTubers talk about how you kind of need to read in this order to kind of get the full effect of that book because these series are interconnected. So there's the Born in Blood and the Camorra Chronicles. So you want to start with the Born in Blood. I'm going to go over the order that I think you should read in, just based off of me watching YouTubers and kind of looking online the best reading order, because it's better and just read straight through each series. You kind of bounce a little bit, not too much. But I'm going to go over the reading order that I think is best. You don't have to do that. If you want to read first through the series, then go to the Camorra Chronicles. That's perfectly fine. But I think this is the perfect reading order to go into. So let's just dive right in. So the first book in the Born in Blood series is Bound by Honor. And this is actually an arranged marriage. And that's why I think this is a perfect book to start with, because in Mafia romances, you're going to get a lot of arranged marriages. I honestly thought that's all Mafia had, and it was kind of good to explore different Mafia romances to realize it's not just the same thing. So in this, we have an arranged marriage. We have Luca Vitiello and Aria, and she is the daughter to, I think, the Consigliere and the Chicago outfit. And then Luca is going to be heading up the Familia in New York. Now, these families are kind of at odds a lot, so they want to build this peace between them. So they're going to do that through arranged marriage. This happens a lot in Mafia romances. So they're going to have an arranged marriage between Luca and Aria. Aria, I think at the beginning of the story, might be like 15 or 16 when they set up the marriage. Obviously, they're going to wait till she's 18. But when they finally do get married, she's pretty scared because these are very rigid. Like, these Italian families are very rigid, traditional families where they shelter their women. They're not really involved in anything. You know, they keep them, sheltered. And then they kind of like have their wife and like mistresses and stuff. And Luca is pretty intimidating. It's an age gap. He is a lot older than her. And he is known as the Vice because he actually crushed a guy's throat with his bare hands. And so she's pretty nervous. He also has this kind of mistress that decides to kind of tell Aria how hard he likes it and to be ready for that on the wedding night. So Aria is super scared and doesn't want to have sex. So this is actually kind of like a pretty slow burn for, it's not too long of a book, but they don't like fully consummate their marriage for a while because she is so like nervous about it, intimidated, and Luca doesn't want to like pressure her. But the thing is they have this stupid tradition and these traditional things of blood on the sheets. So you have to show the blood on your sheets of giving it to your wife that's a virgin. So they kind of stage that a little bit so that they can have sex at a time that's good for them. So I really liked this. I think it's a good introduction. It isn't my favorite in the series. Aria is too stupid to live. I think she's one of the first people I thought of with that phrase, too stupid to live. So It is frustrating because she does make stupid decisions, and you'll see that later in the series. But I did really enjoy it. I love Luca. It's a good introduction to these families. And then we go to the second book, which is Bound by Duty. And this is going to be in the Chicago outfit. So this is between Dante and Valentina. And Dante is the head of the Chicago outfit. He is a pretty cold, like severe, surface level kind of guy. He's not very warm and opening. He's very like strategic. But he actually lost his wife, and they were actually in love. So he, is a widower now. He doesn't have a wife, but he's being pressured. Because I think his dad was still alive at this time, so he wasn't fully at the head of the Chicago outfit, but he will be. Kind of like what Luca is in the New York Familia. And so they're kind of pressuring him to get engaged. So he sees that Valentina, she was actually married. Her husband died. And so he figures, I'll just take that widow because, I don't have to worry about a virgin and like all this kind of stuff. And we won't have feelings. It's just going to be a marriage in name and whatever. It won't matter. But the thing is Valentina was actually married to like her best friend, and he was actually gay. So they never consummated their marriage because the Mafia is very close-minded about homosexuals and all that kind of stuff. So he had to kind of hide that. So they have this arranged marriage, but he's going to find out like the night that they have sex, she's a virgin. And Dante, this isn't like one of my favorites either because Dante comes off pretty cold. And I just didn't really like his behaviors, but I think I grew to like him a lot more later in the books. So it's their romance, and she's trying to like break down his walls and get him to open up to her and kind of have a real marriage. Okay, the next book, I actually just bought these, and I thought I bought it and it didn't come, so I forgot to buy it. But the next book is Bound by Hatred. And this is the romance between Arya's sister, Gianna, and Matteo, which is Luca's brother. So Matteo meets Gianna at like Luca and Arya's wedding, and he's immediately smitten. He's a pretty wild card. I think he's known as the Blade because he always is using his knives. He's pretty brutal, but he's like this suave, funny, like charismatic guy. And Gianna hates the Mafia. She hates her father. She wants out of the Mafia. So when she's getting forced into this marriage, she loses it. And she does not want to marry him. She hates him. And so what she does is she runs off. She runs away. And she goes, I can't remember if she went to Europe or where. Let me see if I have it. Oh, I didn't put it down. Either way, she escapes, goes to another country, and Matteo is livid. He wants her as his wife, and he's like, no freaking way. So he takes off, hunts her down. He finds her. She was actually kind of like had almost type of boyfriend, and they were like making out and everything, and he shows up and they kill him. Like you don't get to leave the Mafia and then like hook up. And that's the thing, is they're very traditional where they want their women to be pure and all this stuff. Matteo doesn't care. He just wants Gianna. So he basically takes her back home. She has a lot of guilt for that. And Gianna was like my most irritating heroine to me because she fought Matteo so hard when they were like so much alike. And you could tell they had insane chemistry, and she just fights it and fights it and fights it. And it's just like, accept it, honey, you're with your soulmate. But so she's a really prickly, bitchy heroine. Luca fucking hates her because he thinks she's screwing around with his brother. And so she causes a lot of drama also between Arya and Luca because, Arya kind of helped her go on the run. So that was not good for her to do that. So it's her romance with Matteo, and they constantly butt heads, and how is that going to work? But it was good. It's just Gianna can get on my nerves a little bit. Okay, so then we have a Bound by Temptation, and I really love this one. This is Liliana and Romero, and Liliana is the youngest sister to Arya, and she has had a crush. She's been pining after Romero, who was actually like kind of like a right-hand man, but mostly like a bodyguard to Arya. And she's been like flirting with him at like a young age. And he's just so like, I can't get involved with you. You're too young. But eventually she does get a little bit older, and she wants a romance with him. She really tries to pursue him, and he knows like this is bad for him. There are big consequences to their romance for the families. So I don't want to get too into that because it's a spoiler, but just know that like them being together is bad and war could happen because she is being forced to marry like a super old, like sleazy guy. And so she's not supposed to be with Romero. So they kind of have to be like hiding their affair and everything. And, you know, there's big consequences to them loving each other. So I really, really love this one. She's really sweet. She doesn't seem too stupid to live as much as like Arya. And she's not as annoying as Gianna. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting book because in Bound by Vengeance, it kind of starts to show a little bit of a ties to the Camorra, which are in Vegas. So in this, we have Growl and Cora. And this case basically takes us to the Las Vegas Camorra. So we're not really in with the other families at this point. But it does have ties to the Luca family, you know, all those families. So basically, Growl is the Camorra enforcer. He's very, like, people are scared of him. He had, like, I think his throat slashed. So his voice box is a little, like, off where he has, like, this growl. Obviously, that's why his name is Growl. And he's pretty brutal. Kara's family was well off. They're rich. They're part of like, kind of like the Mafia. I think her father did like money stuff for the Mafia, but he basically betrayed them. And the Camorra doesn't take kindly to that. So they basically like kill her father and everything. And as a reward to Growl, he basically gives her to Growl. It's kind of a punishment for her family and then rewarding his enforcer. And so Growl's like very happy to have her. He doesn't think he's worth her, like he's worthy of her. It's a very like sweet Beauty and the Beast kind of thing. I just loved it so much. I was kind of shocked how much I loved Growl. You know, he's like this sweet inside and the gooey and all of that. He's just so sweet and gooey and but like a freaking badass. And Cora is actually related to, I believe, Luca the Vitiellos. So that comes into play in this. Obviously, I can't say why because I don't want to give things away. But I really loved their romance. It was kind of crazy and sweet. She doesn't think he's worth her and that she would ever want to be with him, but she was already noticing him at a party, even though he's like this very rough exterior and kind of scary dude. She was already kind of intrigued by him. So I really love their relationship, and I think they have one of the most beautiful relationships in the series. Okay, sorry, I had to get a drink of water. My voice may be a little off because I've been filming a lot today. But our next book that we go into is Bound by Love. So this is actually like a part 2 to Luca and Arya's romance. There's a lot of things that happen in the books after their book that have consequences for their relationship. Certain choices that Arya makes that are really stupid, she does it from a good place. Obviously, she's trying to protect her family. But a lot of her choices reflect badly on Luca, and it's just not good. So, I can't really say a lot about that because it'll give things away from the other books, but it does go into all those consequences. And then also she is really worried about her brother, Fabiano. He's their youngest brother, and he's basically, you know, being trained to be part of the Chicago outfit. Their father is super horrible. They train them at a really young age, and she's just really worried about him, where she wants him to come to like the Familia. So she's kind of getting involved probably where she shouldn't, and thinks there's consequences to that. So I actually liked this one. I know a lot of people don't really like it because Arya frustrates people, but I thought it brought a lot more to their romance and showed all the complications and trials they had to go through to be like a solid unit. And I think it shows a lot more of like Luca. So I really did enjoy it. Okay, so now we're going to step away from the Born in Blood series and we're going to go to the Camorra Chronicles. So the first book you have is Twisted Loyalties. I'm sorry, this is pretty shiny, so I'm hoping it's not hitting it, my ring light. Twisted Loyalties is actually Fabiano's romance. So Fabiano goes through some things in the previous book with his father, and his father kind of abandons him. Not going to go into what happens, but he gets abandoned and kind of screwed over by his father. And so he actually ends up having a run-in with the leader of the Camorra, which is Remo Falcone. And he kind of takes him under his wing and he becomes a fighter. Now, this is really interesting. This is the book that introduces you to the Camorra. So it's like you're going to the you're going to Las Vegas and getting to meet the Falcones. And the Italians over in New York and Chicago, they're very rigid and straight-laced and traditional. The Falcones are not that way. They're chaotic. They're kind of crazy. I find them so fascinating because it isn't the traditional stuff that you see with the other mafias. So it's crazy. So Fabiano basically becomes an underground kind of fighter for Remo, and he actually becomes, goes over to Vegas with him because Remo wasn't fully set up in Vegas till his dad dies, and then he finally gets to go over and take over the Camorra. And he's also the enforcer for the Camorra. So in this we have Leona, and she actually has nothing to do with the Mafia. She doesn't know anything about it. I kind of liked that. She was a complete outsider to the Mafia. And she goes to live with her father in Vegas. He basically abandoned her. Both her parents are drug addicts. And she shows up to Vegas to try and have a place to stay, to look for work. Her dad is not in a good place. He's really bad. I think he's in debt and a drug addict on all this stuff. So she's out trying to find a job. She doesn't have any clothes. She gets stuck in the rain, I think. And then Fabiano shows up in this rich car and gives her a ride. And he kind of tells her about a place that he knows that's hiring. And so they're hiring for a waitress. So she goes to that. And then it ends up being owned by the Camorra, and he shows up one day to do a fight because this bar kind of place is also for the underground fighting. So sorry, my cat's playing in the background. So her and Fabiano kind of have this relationship, and it's called Twisted Loyalties because Fabiano is very loyal and he's dedicated to the Camorra, and it's all he cares about. But being involved with Leona may test his loyalties to the Camorra. I think it's a great introduction to who Remo Falcone is. He's very scary. He's psycho. He's intimidating. So I really liked it. Okay, so now on to my favorite book. This is the book that I wanted to read from the get-go because I heard so many good things about it, but I had to read everything first. And that is Twisted Emotions. This is my favorite book. It means so much to me. The Nino Falcone is one of my top book boyfriends, and I love this book. So this book is Nino Falcone's romance with Chiara. And Nino Falcone is Remo's younger brother. He is actually kind of seen as having no emotions. He doesn't feel things. He's very cold. He kind of mentions he might be kind of on the spectrum. You don't know for sure. But he basically has no emotions. Now they're going to do arranged marriage between them and the Familia because, to build a bridge between and kind of build an alliance with them. And so Chiara's the person they choose for this to marry, Nino Falcone. They're pretty worried about the Falcones because they're so out of control. And she was actually, her parents, I think, were killed being for traitors or whatever. And so she actually was raised by her aunt and uncle. They took her in. But she was actually raped as a young child by her uncle. Not the uncle that took her in. It was a separate uncle, which can be kind of confusing. But he raped her for a long time. And so she's very scared to go into this arranged marriage. And they have to do the bloody sheets and all of that. And she's not a virgin. So she's very intimidated. At the wedding, the wedding night, Nino goes to have sex with her and he can tell like she's traumatized. And so he finds out the truth. And he basically says, okay, like I'm going to get you the bloody sheets. And he and Ramo kill her uncle over the sheets and provide those as the bloody sheets. When Luca finds out why they killed him, he completely understands, and it's okay because that could have been like a war. But that was like the opening to this book. Like, it's just amazing. Like, Nino is so patient with her because of her trauma. She like doesn't really want to have sex. And he kind of even says to her like, hey, I can just seek out mistresses or women outside of the home if that would be better for you. And she agrees to that. But eventually they have like this really beautiful building relationship where she wants that intimacy with him. And so she asks him to try just with her. And so the amount of patience and care he takes to having sex with her and being intimate with her, the slow build of their relationship, how much she starts to mean to him, where he's very possessive and loving and he's feeling emotions for the first time, or he's scared. I could go on and on about this book. Like, honestly, it's one of my favorite Mafia romances of all time. It's amazing. I love Nino Falcone. He's just a beautiful, beautiful man. And Chiara will just break your heart. So this is the biggest recommend. You got to read this book. Then we go to Ramo Falcone's romance, and that is Twisted Pride. Now, Twisted Pride is an amazing book. Ramo is out of control, crazy, psycho, but he is a very interesting character. He basically is pissed off at Dante from the Chicago outfit because they kind of attacked the Camorra one time. And so he's pissed and he wants vengeance. So he decides he's going to kidnap Serafina, who is Dante's niece, on her wedding day and take her home to Las Vegas. And Nino didn't know about this fully. He's just like always tries to rein in Ramo's tendencies, but Ramo does it, which pisses him off. And now they have Serafina there. And Serafina is a wilting little flower. She's feisty and she pushes back. And they have this insane attraction to each other that he wasn't expecting. And he wasn't expecting to kind of fall for her and for her to be as badass as she is. And so they have this amazing push and pull dynamic. It's a captor-captive romance, one of the best ones. And so, so this book has some consequences down the line too. So him and Serafina have a very interesting relationship. You get to learn why Ramo and Nino are kind of fucked up in the to begin with, and their family and how bad their mother was. So I think this is an amazing book. Okay, so then you go on to Twisted Bonds. So Twisted Bonds is actually a continuation of Nino and Chiara's relationship. Now, I can't go into anything really from this because it'll give things away, but it was such a beautiful story. If there was anybody I wanted more of a relationship or a second book on, it was Nino and Chiara. I think they have such a beautiful relationship. The Falcones are so crazy because Chiara came from the more traditional environment. And she goes to Vegas, and you got these Falcones all living in a mansion. They're kind of like bachelors. They're pretty vulgar. They don't care about what they do in front of her. Like, she literally had like walked in on like Ramo screwing somebody and Savio screwing somebody in like the same room. And she was pretty shocked. Where like Nino has to get on their asses. Like, can you not, like, in front of my wife? So she kind of like starts to try and take care of these boys, and feeding them and taking care of them. And I really loved her relationship with Adamo, which was the youngest one. So this one just really builds on their relationship. It just shows how much they've grown. And they're just one of my favorite couples. So I absolutely love this one. Okay, so we're going to take a quick trip back to the Born in Blood series. And we are going to go to Bound by the Past. And this is a second book for Dante and Valentina. I actually really liked this book. I thought it was very interesting because we get more from Dante's perspective, and you get to see kind of why Dante's a little bit cold or aloof or whatever, him as growing up and everything and becoming the head of the Chicago outfit. You get their like kind of relationship starting from his perspective, but it also goes into the kind of fallout from what Ramo did. That's why you kind of want to read this after going into the Camorra Chronicles, because then you're going to get hints to Ramo kidnapping Serafina in this book. So you want to wait to read this till after you read those to get more info. So basically in this, that's the best part to me, was seeing what Dante and them went through because of Falcone's actions. You know, Ramo Falcone kidnapping Serafina, her falling in love with him. There's a lot that goes on fallout from that. And so to see Chicago's perspective on that and them kind of losing their minds, I thought that was really interesting. But I'm always going to be on the Falcone side because I just love them. So I really, really liked this one. I thought it was a better like version of reading Dante and Valentina and had fun Falcone in it. Okay, so the last two books of the Camorra Chronicles, honestly, were not my favorites. They're like the worst books to me, and it really bummed me out. But the first one you have is Twisted Hearts. And this is Savio's romance. And I won't even really call it a romance because it's not a romance. I did not like this book, and it really upset me because the Camorra Chronicles up like Two Twisted Bonds is like 5 stars. And then you get this book and it's a huge letdown. But it's Savio. He's basically a man whore. And Gemma has had a crush on him since she was younger. He's one of her, like her brother's best friends with Savio. And he knows she has a crush on him, and he kind of manipulates her and uses it to his advantage. And she's basically from a very traditional family where like you can't have sex till you get married, which is very different from what Savio is and the Falcones. So she basically is trying to pursue him. She constantly throws herself at him, like wants to be with him, and he wants nothing to do with her. And then she like is going to get engaged to somebody else, and Savio's like, no, I want to pop her cherry kind of thing. And so then he's okay, like, now I want to marry her just to kind of screw her. But I want a long engagement so I can screw other people at the same time. I freaking hate Savio. And Gemma was so pathetic. Like, she's one of the most pathetic heroines I've ever seen because she constantly throws herself at him. He constantly lets her down and just embarrasses her and ridicules. It's just, like, for 70% of this book, he's screwing other chicks. So, honestly, like, I wouldn't probably recommend that one. But if you want to finish the series, I would definitely read it. I have heard a couple people actually like it. I just can't get on board with Savio. He has like a bull tattooed over his, you know, so she can ride his bull. He's just, ugh. Anyways, that's why I don't have that book, because I'm not going to buy that book. And then the next book is Twisted Cravings. And this is Adamo's book. Now, I was really anticipating Adamo's book because I can't say what, but so much happens to Adamo that I really wanted to go into what he went through. He ends up even going over to the Familia and learning, you know, things through like Luca. And so I kind of wanted like more info on that and more info on the thing that happened to him and what he went through. We don't really get that. This book is mostly about the heroine. Her name was Dinara, and she's part of the Russian, you know, Mafia, the Bratva, and they're always at war with the Russians. So she has her own reasons that she's kind of coming into his racing because he's running the racing circuit, and she kind of joins that and becomes a racer because she wants information. Is trying to kind of get close to Adamo, and she needs info about Ramo, like from Ramo and about Ramo. So it was mostly about her trauma because she was badly sexually assaulted, and it's a very triggering, so check your triggers. So it was mostly her story, which would have been good or whatever, but I wanted more Adamo. So that's kind of why I was let down with that one. But it was okay. So there's a couple other books that you can read. I don't Like, honestly, I read this. So there's Bound by Blood Anthology, and it's just a bunch of little short stories on each couple. I thought it was okay. I didn't really like it because I didn't like what they did with Gianna and Matteo. They did like some issues with her getting pregnant, even though they never wanted to have kids. And it's a whole long drawn out thing that I didn't really appreciate. But it was okay. The best part of it was reading Growl, like a little thing about Growl and Cora, and I just loved that. And then you have Luca Vitiello. Honestly, you could read this any time, I think. Maybe after the Bound by Honor. I didn't read it till I like finished the series, and I don't think that's bad at all. So this is everything that happens in Bound by Honor from Luca's perspective. I really love this because you get to see Luca as a child and like when he became the Vice and all the different things that went on in his life. And then obviously his romance with Arya, like in that book. So I really did enjoy it. I think it's definitely I just don't know if you should read those back to back because it's pretty much the same storyline. And then one that I have that is a standalone Cora Reilly. And what's funny is this was actually my first Cora Reilly I ever read. So I read this before reading these other things, but it does have some ties to it. So you might want to read it after Camorra Chronicles, or at least Twisted Emotions. Because this is actually a arranged marriage between Cassio and Julia. And this is in the Philadelphia Mafia. But Julia actually has ties to Chiara. She's her cousin, I think. Yeah, I think they were cousins. So she actually gets an arranged marriage with Cassio. His wife has died mysterious reasons, and he's left with a couple kids. So now he needs a wife. And so they arrange this marriage, and she's only 18. I think he's like in his 30s, so it's a big age gap. And she's kind of like, what? I'm not just going to be here for you to get off and then like take care of your kids for you. Like, I want a real marriage. So she kind of is like, I loved it because she was a little bit feistier than Arya, and she wasn't as stupid as Arya. And so I really like their relationship. She is actually cousins to Chiara, and at this point, her mom and dad, I believe, are the uncle and uncle that take in Chiara. So at one point, it's brought up about Chiara, maybe being raped and all that kind of stuff. So it could be better to read that like after you read the Camorra Chronicles. So I actually really loved it. I think it was a great arranged marriage, age gap. And a feisty, strong heroine. I love that. So those are my Cora Reilly that I have read, at least. I know there's more. There's some other standalones. I didn't read the second generation of their kids yet because I heard a lot of mixed stuff about it. Like, a lot of people didn't like them, but I'm willing to give it a shot and see if I'm going to like it. But those so far are my Cora Reilly, an intro to Mafia. Thank you so much for watching this. If you can always, please remember to like and subscribe, and let me know in the comments down below your favorite Cora Reilly, or if you've read the second generation and you think I should give it a try. All right. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one.